Morning team. We have some really cool stuff going on right now. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Anders Varner. I'm the strength coach here at the Low Back Fix, and today it's a very interesting Facebook Live because we're inside a really special place to me. Today, this is De Anza Cove in San Diego, California. And what is so awesome about this spot is, one, we're having our morning coffee together, which is really important. And two, we're going to go on a walk together. And that may sound a little strange, but this walk that we're about to go on is a really special place to me. At least like 3 days a week, I get to come to this beautiful spot. You can see the bay behind me. There's a lot of palm trees because we live in San Diego and we're really lucky. And all those gray clouds that you see behind me. This is about as bad as it ever gets on the weather front here. So it's an interesting, this spot is super fun to me. Most importantly, it's about an hour and a half walk, and what I do out here is I think about a lot of things. I get to watch my brain go a little crazy and kind of connect the dots of all the pieces of my life. Sometimes I think about business and maybe some of the struggles or things that we're going through. Sometimes it's about relationships, how my wife and I are doing, where we are headed, some of the conversations we've been having. And a lot of times I just sit out here and just be grateful for life and the fact that I get to do this thing that I love with the people that I love for a living. I get to make people feel better and connect them with their bodies. One of the big things that happens out here as well that kind of unites all these things is movement. And this path that I'm on, I'm always in deep search of like the meaning behind what I do. I'm not really one of those people that's able to just like go do a job. Like, it has to really mean something to me. And it has to be really important to me in order to get me motivated to actually do it. And this journey that I've been on in weightlifting starts so long ago, and it means so much to me. I don't believe that people should just go to the gym. I think that there's always this like deeper purpose to things that we do in the gym and the way that we connect with our bodies. And my journey through all this started when I was 13. I was really clueless. I think sometimes when I throw that number out, people get this impression in their head that I was like born to do this weightlifting thing or like to coach, to be a strength coach. And it's so far from the truth. I was really lost. I needed to play sports. I was really small. I still kind of am small. I needed to get stronger. I needed to get faster. I had just committed to leaving home at the age of 13 to go play prep school hockey in Massachusetts. And I was really young. And the coach that I was playing for literally told me as I was getting ready to ship out when I was 14, that summer, that I needed to get bigger and faster, and or I was going to have to play JV. Well, I had never been cut from anything in my life, so the thought of playing JV was just child's play. There was no chance. I was a gangster, and there was no way I was playing JV. So I started hitting the weight room, and I've been one of those fortunate people that all along the way I've had really good coaches. Sometimes stress shows up in the form of an ambulance. I hope those people are okay. And the very first strength coach I ever had was the strength and conditioning coach for Great Bridge Wrestling in Chesapeake, Virginia, who actually happens to own 13 state titles in wrestling. So pretty smart guy, like he knows what he's doing. My dad was a strength coach. He trained me for 3 years. And then when I got to college, I kind of like lost my way just a little bit for like a year or two. I think that partying kind of takes over and you lose sight of the weight room and importance. But then I met Brian Borstein, and he super lit that fire for me. And he's a really, really smart coach, and really was like technically on point. Like he was someone that really pushed the conversation for me. We trained together for like 10 years. We opened a gym together out in San Diego. Around 2002, 2006, I found CrossFit, and which was so incredible for me because being a strength athlete your whole life, it's kind of one of these things that happens to you where you commit so much of your time and so much of this life to eating well and training well and recovering and understanding all these things that go inside your body, and it's for nothing. Like being a strength athlete sucks because there's no money, there's no you're like a big fish in a tiny, tiny pond, but something keeps bringing you back to the barbell, and it's really interesting. So I found CrossFit, and it gave me this like purpose behind my training. Like everything Greg Glassman was saying was everything to me. Like I just, that whole thing, constantly very functional movements done at high intensity. That was me. Like I had been doing that my whole life, and now I had a sport to play again. And I pursued that, and it was amazing. CrossFit gave me a platform and like a structure that taught me how to be good at things. I think we always have these coaches in our lives. I remember the first year that I shipped out to boarding school, and I remember sitting in my English classroom just being so lost. Like I was around all these kids that I thought were so smart, and I just assumed that they were like born smart. But I had an English teacher that came over to me, and I had written my very first paper for her, and she kind of looked at me and she was just like, "No one really taught you how to do this, huh?" And it was so real. Like nobody had ever taught me that it was okay to be smart. It was okay to learn. It was okay to want to be good at things. And she really lit that fire for me. And when I found CrossFit, it was very, very similar, right? Like Greg Glassman gave me this purpose behind all the things I had been doing. And he gave me a reason to be under the barbell. And it wasn't about sports because I wasn't playing sports. I was just training, and aimlessly training for that matter. But when I found CrossFit, it was just this thing that my friends and I were doing, and we were the only ones doing it. We were so weird. Nobody wanted to be around us, especially our girlfriends, especially our friends. Like, you don't stop talking about it. It's brutal. In 2010, Brian and I opened a gym, and it was incredible. We sent over 70 athletes to the regional. I competed at the regional 4 times. And the whole vibe around what we were doing at the gym was just, how can we be the absolute best strength and conditioning gym in the world? Like, we needed that. We believed that. We wanted to have the strongest people. We wanted to have the fastest people. And we wanted to train with an intensity that a lot of people couldn't handle. And that was the vibe that we put out, and that was real, and it worked. And one day, we got a phone call, and one of the most famous, strongest people I've ever met in my life walked into the gym, and we were ready. We knew how to cater to those people. And in 2000, or I don't even know what year, I guess it's about 2015, we became really good friends with John Cena, and he became training partners with us. And it's a really awesome honor when you set your mind to something to create a culture and a vibe that works. And when one of the biggest, strongest, most well-known people in the game shows up and you're ready and you know what that person wants and you know that you can create that relationship and you know you have a common bond with somebody that's that respected in the world. And that's where we were. But after, I guess in 2015-ish, he invited us to his house in Tampa. And we hopped on a plane, drove to Tampa. In a 48-hour window, I snatched 232 pounds. I deadlifted 467, I believe. Back squatted 419. Jerked 300, clean 308, bench 285. And I had reached this milestone that he had put in front of us of joining the 1-ton club at his private gym in Tampa. And when I got home, you have this like downfall of like, man, like I've reached this thing. Like where do I go from here? And I knew I was done competing in CrossFit. I had just had this amazing experience in my life, and I knew that like I was done. Like the barbell had treated me so well. I had like been in this relationship with it for so long, and I loved it, and I wanted to be around it forever. But when I stepped back and I started to take this inventory of my life, I started to realize like things weren't that great, right? I had really fallen out of love with CrossFit. It wasn't for me anymore. I kind of like took a step back and realized that my body was really broken. My ankles sucked, which really hinders a lot of things. I broke my big toe a couple times. One time dropping a 205-pound snatch directly on my big toe. That was about 2 months before regionals, and I never fixed it. I just kept training. Those kind of issues led to my left knee being really junky. My left hip still bothers me a lot. I have a decently bad glute on the right side. Both of my shoulders are not that cool. I tried to do the bear complex one day at 295 pounds, and the sweat on my back made for a nice slip and slide as the bar went straight down my back when I dropped the bar onto me, and it felt like my shoulders were going to fall off. And just when you step back and you start to take inventory, things get a little crazy. I was in pain. I wasn't really moving that well. I was doing so many things that were on this like outward expression of strength. And it got me to this place where I knew I needed to change, but I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know anything else because I was only focused on strength and conditioning and being the biggest and the strongest and fastest. And I couldn't get out of that. Like, that was all I knew, was that you lifted weights to be really big and strong. So lucky for me, my dear friend and now business partner, Dr. Teresa, was in the middle of publishing her book, Warrior. And the whole book is just, I mean, it's a phenomenal read, but it's about the behavioral health issues that people face, and just understanding that you can start over and recognizing where you're at today, where you want to go, how do you feel, what's like that inventory process with you. And when I started doing that, and I started to rack up the injuries, I started to realize like I had fallen out of love with CrossFit. Sorry, I have an itch. I realized that I needed to, it wasn't just the physical piece, right? Like when you wake up and you have to go to work every day and you're not super, super devoted to teaching the thing that you're going to do. Like if you're going to be good at the thing that I'm teaching you, there's a really strong chance that the same musculoskeletal issues that I have, you're going to have. Because I've been training with really smart people, you're training with really smart people, and in order to be, I guess, good at this thing, there's going to be some repercussions towards the end. So I started talking to her, and I know a lot of people have heard this story, but I asked her what I should do, and she asked me to go down to the beach, and my gym was 3 blocks from the beach, and I tried to count to 10 breaths, which is really it sounds simple, but I challenge you when we get off this live today to close your eyes and breathe deeply into your belly through your nose and try to get to 10 breaths and count them without your brain spinning out of control. And what you'll learn is probably the same thing that I learned, which is it's really, really, really challenging. This happened to be like this massive turning point in my life. Like, it's so crazy how someone can suggest something to you and offer you a piece of advice, and what that thing turns into is like this launch pad into the unknown, and then you start to see changes in your life because of it. And I had tried this meditation thing before like 2 or 3 times, and it just really never stuck. Like, one, it was so hard that I just couldn't commit to it. Like, I just didn't know it would be so challenging. But as I slowly started to understand, I started to think about, I was able to kind of connect the dots and the universal periodization of everything in life. Like, we all start at 0 every single day, but we have the experiences of everything that we can kind of connect the dots, draw. You have to see this. There's this gorgeous, look at this, unbelievable. Such a beautiful place we live in. And I started to go back and I calculated old personal records from like the time I was 17 until, like I had maxed out my strength, and virtually across the board, every single thing I had done had gone up like 9 pounds my entire life. And in my brain, I kind of knew this, because I'd be like, if I keep training, I'll probably snatch 10 pounds a year more. I'll probably clean and jerk 10 pounds at squat and all these things. And then when I started this breathing thing, I started to notice like I was a little bit calmer. I was a little bit more focused. I was able to separate from the CrossFit thing a little bit and start to do things that actually were just beneficial to what I was working on, like getting healthy, trying to get rid of the pain of just walking around, my knees, my shoulders, all that stuff. And what I would get to is a very different training methodology in which I was going really slow and focusing on quality movement, making sure my glutes are firing properly. But this breathing piece started to take shape in my life, and I started to recognize a lot of changes, right? And those changes led me down this path where I started just doing some simple guided meditations through like the Headspace app, which is a great buy-in once you've realized how challenging this is and you need a coach. From there, about a year of those, and I finally gained the confidence to go into like a group meditation class. And I had found this thing, I had found some coaches, I found people that were like willing to help me really learn what's going on with the mindset piece behind this. And what I learned is there's so much of this behavioral health piece. So when we start to think about like, how can we train? How can we do things like lift weights for the rest of our lives that we really, really, really enjoy doing? Like, I would love to live till I'm 120. I don't just say that number, like I really believe that the advances in technology, but in order to do that, I'm gonna have to find a way to do this thing that's incredibly healthy and really works in the longevity piece. And when I started to when you break down like, okay, what do I need? I'm injured. What do I need here? Well, it's really easy to start thinking like, I need to work on my mobility because I'm tight. So I started doing that, and I would go to a yoga class. I hate yoga. I really, really hate yoga. And I don't hate yoga because of yoga. I hate yoga for the same reason I'm a really not a fan of like most group fitness classes. I find them to be, the majority of the coaching side of it, to just be very stock footage. And when you go into the majority of yoga studios, you're going to get like your sun salutations and the poses, and there's no real coaching, there's no real value that goes along with that. So it took me a very long time to find these yin yoga classes and teachers. And what I started to learn was that the idea of stretching is so far off from what so many people need. And what we need to learn about and what we need to actually focus on is getting a little bit deeper and starting with our nervous system and starting with kind of our ability to relieve stress. And then we can start working on tissues and joints. So I started this system, and luckily for me, I had some very, very good friendships and clients that were recovering from surgeries and recovering from injury that would allow me to do this stuff. So we start the process. We get into the nervous system. We work on the breath. And when I started to look around into the fitness world, I realized like this is not something that really exists. I'm really, really lucky to be in a community of people that is a little different than everyone else. We don't really buy into the mainstream ideas of fitness. If you've ever heard of Max Shank, he's one of the best strength coaches I've ever had the pleasure of being friends with. His take on life is really, really strong. It's the ultimate athleticism, but more importantly, the 5-minute flow that he has put out. It's a phenomenal product, and it's really changed a lot of the ways that I think about the nervous system and stretching and mobility pieces. But Doug Larson, Mike Bledsoe, really good friends, and they have talked to literally like the smartest people in the entire industry. And when we talk about these things and how, because look, we love lifting weights, right? And we're going to do it our whole lives, but we have to find ways to do this that it doesn't require all the lifting and all the speed. And we have to find ways that we can do this where we're able to like restore function to our body and focus on quality movement and find out where all those pieces are. Like we can use weightlifting as a tool to create health. And there's a huge, huge difference in our intention that we set when we entered the gym. So this is how I started training people. And what's great about training people in this manner is that I am at maybe the top end or the higher end of the strength and conditioning world, as like generally speaking. And I'm using the same methodologies for myself to heal and feel better that I'm using for people that just finished surgeries or have like chronic pain issues. And this system starts with understanding our nervous system and eliminating stress from our life. Text message came in. We have this little thing in our body called the autonomic nervous system, and we talk about it a lot, starting with the sympathetic, our fight or flight. So anytime something happens, we kind of stress out a little bit. We're driving to work, we're sitting at work, things are stressful. You may get this like shrugged approach to when you're like writing emails, or you feel like you're like fighting and your shoulders are in your ears. That's all our sympathetic. Anytime if you've ever had anxiety in your life about anything, you know exactly what it feels like when the sympathetic nervous system is just on fire. But on the reverse side of that, or on the alternate side of that, we have the parasympathetic, where we can down-regulate the tissues, and we can slow things down and let our body process that stress. So it's massively important to have these two systems working harmoniously, and that way we're able to alleviate tension in the body. So the number of people, and you're probably one of these people that you think, oh, I need to stretch more, things feel tight. But then when I stretch, I can never just hit the right spot, or I can never like find the perfect stretch. And the thing is that it doesn't exist. That's just neural tension where your body's nervous system is not firing properly. So all those wires just don't work. And when we're able to get in and focus on the breath, and we set an intention for the training where we're going to take care of ourselves and move properly, everything changes, right? We slow the nervous system down. We slow that stress response down. And you may not even want to listen to that Metallica or rap music anymore. You may just want to even be in a calm setting where you're like, you have 1 hour a day for most people to get into the gym and do something that's really, really quality for your body. And sometimes just beating the crap out of it isn't what you should do. But it's really about setting that intention of, I'm going into the gym today to do something really, really good. I'm going to move really well. I'm going to restore function to my joints and muscles. The next thing is, now that we've taken the stress out of the tissues, told the brain that, hey, everything's going to be okay. We're going to move with intention. We're going to move well, this quality movement piece. Then we can start to understand sort of where the tissues are at. We can focus on mobility and stability. We can understand joint health. Like, once we learn about optimal ranges of motion in all of our joints, then you can start to have a better conversation about, do you even need to be stretching? Everybody needs more stability, their core stability supporting their low spine, all these pieces. And we start to build this framework. It starts with down regulation and getting into the nervous system. Then we start to look in joint and tissue health. And then the final layer is getting into the movement patterns and not just working out to work out and sweat. Like, if you think about your brain, it's kind of this central processing unit for all the function in your body. And in order for it to work, it works just like a computer. It fires this little piece of electricity all the way down to your feet, and that helps you walk. But if that wire isn't running well, there's a good chance you have balance problems. Your fall risk as you get older is going to be much higher. All these pieces we can train, and the way you walk, the way your feet interact with the ground, we can heighten all of our senses to become more aware of the quality of movement that we're putting into life. And it's really, really important to understand that all of this stuff works better when you move slower, because you're able to create more of a connection to the result and the process of rewiring. When I started to put all this together, I realized that I was doing something that nobody was really talking about. I have some mentors, I have some really smart people that I get to talk to, but creating this program, the Low Back Fix, has given me the opportunity to step back and say, where are we going with this? And how is this affecting people's lives? And what we've learned is that it's not just the physical. Like, we need the physical, the mental, the emotional. We need all of those pieces working in harmony so that we can create health and wellness. And that's at the heart of what needs to happen here. We're going off-road because there's a guy with a weed blower and I don't want to deal with him. So, off-road on the grass now. But all of these pieces have to work harmoniously, or there's going to be a massive problem. So much stress, emotional and mental stress, is stored in our tissues, and we have to alleviate that to start. Then we can start to build on the physical pieces. But what we're learning the most is that the program is not about just the physical, right? Behavioral changes. Just slowing down for 5 minutes and doing breath work at the beginning of your workout will change everything. You have to start breathing. You have to start connecting with your body. You have to start creating intention for why you're doing things, or it's pointless. You'll never be able to get to that point where you connect with your body, your brain moves well. All these pieces that have to go together to create health and wellness can be solved through one program. It's incredible how the behavioral changes in people and understanding why they're doing something can be changed so quickly. And all we need to do is set intentions, breathe a little bit, and slow down so that we can feel what's going on and use as many of our senses as possible. Like, this yin strength training program that I've come up with puts me in like a really it's kind of scary to me because it's something I believe in so much that it's a little weird. It tells people that strength training is not about the weights. It's about our internal connection with ourselves and how we can process our current state. So it's not about PRs. It's not about times. It's not about where did you finish in the open or how much weight did you lift, how quickly. It's this, how'd you feel? And I don't know how to quantify how'd you feel because it's so personal to all of us, but I can't justify and ethically feel like a good strength coach unless when you leave the gym or you leave the workout or you leave wherever you're at and you feel like you've gotten something out of that goes well beyond, are you sweating really hard? That just doesn't matter anymore. And this program, because we're putting all these pieces together, really builds the foundation for behavioral health that allows you to be successful at anything. Like if you're going into meetings at work or relationships, having an intention or understanding why it's important to you and who these people are, and creating all these connections to life. It's a behavioral pattern that you can create, and it's not so much about strength and conditioning. But I know these things work. The low back fix is proven time and time and time again, and from large group settings to individual coaching, that the ability to slow your body down, heal your nervous system, and get into the tissues once they've been calmed down, and then focusing on movement patterns is incredibly important. And the behavioral changes, the mindset changes, the physical changes, they create healthy humans, and that's what we are here for. There's an article coming out this afternoon about digging into yin strength training and all the pieces, and I can't wait for you to read it. It's so exciting to me to be able to launch this and have this framework that we can categorize how people should move and how people should live and treat themselves. We're going to have the article up here pretty soon. Thank you for listening to this. We are about close to the halfway point of this beautiful walk at the Enza Cove. God, look at that. It's so incredible. Thank you for being a part of this, and I will talk to you guys soon.